For those of you that don't know me, I'm Caroline Gitcham and I'm the chair of Wish North East, at least for the next couple of hours, till I hand over to the fabulous Crystal Hicks, who's going to take over from me. Thank you so much for choosing to celebrate International Women's Day 2021 with us. You're in for a real treat. If we can have the next slide, please, Em. This is what you can expect this morning. This is the agenda. It's going to be a fabulous event. It would have been lovely if we could have been sitting in the Ramside, which is where we normally are, but maybe later on this year. I want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors. So we've got Chris from 13, who's going to take us through a short presentation in a moment, but we've also got Scott Bibby from Core House. So thank you to Core House. We've got Bobby and Rebecca from Prosper. So thank you so much to Prosper. We've got Geeta from MRI Software. And we've also got a crowd in from Believe, who helped with all of the packaging of the boxes. So thank you so much to all of our sponsors. We are really grateful for your support. And if I can pass over to Chris Smith, who's going to take us through a short presentation just telling us why it's important. This agenda is important to 13. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Caroline. And Crystal, are you going to move the slides on?
They're being moved on.
Yeah, brilliant. So I think just on the next slide, it's just a few slides, and thank you just for the opportunity just to say a few words, really. I mean, it is dead important to us, the whole kind of equality, diversity and inclusion agenda, and I think we do quite a lot in this space. We can always do more, like any organisation, but I think we are very, very open to it. So 50% of our exec directors are women. A good 45% of service directors are women. That figure does change and morph. And we've got good representation of managers with women in 13. And if any of you have read the recent Inside Housing bumper edition, there was an article in there about one of our managers, the fabulous Steph Lawler. She's in her early 20s and she manages one of our least diverse services, our repairs teams. And she's doing a fantastic job at 24. And I just think she's really going to go places. So, as I said, there's more we can always do, but we like to try and do as much as we can within this space. So just a few other things that we do. We have our LGBT plus group was set up for and by colleagues just to give that support and raise awareness. We do a lot of work with businesses. We've just recently sponsored the Tees Valley Business Awards for Women in Business, just to support those local community businesses. And we do a lot around campaigns and making sure that we raise that awareness where we can. But what I wanted just a little bit of focus on was our latest partnership, which is called the Girls Network. I don't know if you can move the slides on, Crystal, to the third slide in the next one, which is an organisation we came across with our partnership with Teesside University. We signed a memorandum of understanding with Teesside University the back end of last year to work together cooperatively to try and raise aspirations in some of the most difficult communities that we work in. And they'd come across this organisation. They'd been doing some work in schools in East Middlesbrough where the girls themselves called themselves washing machines, because that's what they thought their future was. They would just be in the home doing domestic chores, and that's what the lads called them. So it's pretty appalling to have that kind of view this day and age, but that's prevalent in some schools in East Middlesbrough. So they linked us up with the Girls Network, which is a national charity, but they've come to work in Teesside. And basically at its heart, it's around kind of raising aspirations with young women and giving them that opportunity to make the best out of themselves and the most out of themselves. So we are working with them now directly. And if you go on to the next slide, Crystal, that's just a little bit of what we're doing. So it is in Teesside. We started recruiting within 13 for mentors to work with these young girls within, particularly within Middlesbrough. And we had a massive response for young women in our workplace wanting to get involved to be mentors. So we started the training in January. We had 50 volunteers. I think we've got around about 36 people who are going to be doing this. And we're going to be mentoring young girls within the 14 to 19 age range within Teesside. So they'll just link up with each other and they're going to mentor them for a year. and it's about a month, every month. It's about an hour a week, an hour a month to do that mentoring. And we're going to launch that program in spring. So the next slide just talks about some of the feedback we've had from the people in our organisation who are looking to do this. I think they are as excited as the young girls who are going to get this this service from them, and I'm sure that women in the workplace who are doing this program will get as much out of it as the people they're mentoring. So we're dead excited about it. I think it's just going to be a fantastic program that we're going to start running, and hopefully we'll continue to do this. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Caroline, for the opportunity to share that. So I'll pass you on. Thank you.
No, that's brilliant, Chris. Thank you so much for your continued support. And that sounds like a fantastic initiative. So I'm sure there'll be many more that'll maybe want to get involved in the Girls Network as well. I know I was speaking to Angela, and Angela said the quality of the training that you get as well is is fantastic. So that's great to hear, and thank you again. That's brilliant. If we can go on to now, we're absolutely delighted that Nicole Jacobs, who is the designate domestic abuse Commissioner, she couldn't be with us today, but she wanted to send this video. So it's just a couple of minute video, and we are delighted that she's chosen to support our event. So over to Nicole.
Hi, Women in Social Housing Northeast. My name is Nicole Jacobs, and I'm really thrilled to send you a quick message from me from the Office of the Designate Domestic Abuse Commissioner for England and Wales. I hear from your chair, Caroline Grisham, and one of your very active members, Kelly Henderson, that you're fundraising for Women's Aid Federation England and doing all sorts of challenges, which is great because it's obviously been International Women's Day this week. It Choose to Challenge week for us all, and nothing better than the incredible work you're doing, rowing and running and walking and doing all sorts to raise money for Women's Aid England. So I can't tell you how much I support your efforts, how thankful I am for all that you do at WISH in general to raise awareness and to support each other and to help us all do better in any number of ways, and including how we address domestic abuse. And I think you're a wonderful organization and showing a lot of leadership and camaraderie and support for each other. And I think that's really amazing. I hope to come up and visit you at some point and see you in person. But for now, I just wanted to thank you for what you're doing. I can tell you, having been the commissioner throughout the whole of COVID, you'll know it's been an extremely hard year for those who are subject to domestic abuse, and very hard year also for the services who've had to change what they do and run and provide services and support in different ways. And those services are really exhausted, frankly, and really in need of a boost like the kind of fundraising that you're doing. So it makes a world of difference. I hope you appreciate that. And I just want to thank you again for what you're doing. Keep up all of your great challenges. Make sure all of your friends and family know about it and can support and sponsor you. And I can't wait to hear about where you get to at the end of all of your challenges. So thank you for letting me say a quick hello to you. And I'm really happy to support WISH Northeast in any way I possibly can. I'm a big fan of Caroline, and I'm a big fan of Kelly, as you all probably know. And maybe we can think of a challenge to do together at some point. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful, I hope you had a wonderful International Women's Day. And again, thank you for all that you're doing, and best of luck.
That was absolutely fabulous. So we do really appreciate the support from Nicole. I'm now going to pass over to Lizzie and Cordelia, who would like to tell us a bit more about Women's Aid and the fabulous work that they're doing, and hopefully get you to part with some money for the cause.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. Lizzie, are you okay to share your screen?
Yeah. Do you guys mind stop sharing your screen for a moment?
It was great to hear from Nicole there, and we just wanted to echo her sentiments that it's really great that you've been doing so much amazing fundraising for Women's Aid, and I know you've got more planned. So yeah, we just thought we'd take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about our work, if you don't know us already, just to see where some of your money is going to go. Over to you, Lizzie.
So just before I start, I'll just double check that everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. So hi, thank you so much for having us. I'm Lizzie and that was Cordelia. It's really amazing to be here speaking today, so thank you. I'll just talk you through Women's Aid in general. So firstly, Cords and I are both on the fundraising team. So yeah, I just echo what Cordelia said. Thank you so much for your fundraising efforts. So Women's Aid is the national charity working to end domestic abuse against women and children. Over the past 25 years, we have been at the forefront of shaping and coordinating responses to domestic abuse through practice, research, and policy. So our work can be broadly defined into 5 areas. So firstly, as the national charity, we support our members. We've got 170 frontline organisations who provide local services across the country. So we work to amplify their voices, help them to fundraise, to support them in any way we can. Secondly, we run various campaigns surrounding changes to policy, practice, and awareness. So, for example, our campaigns team has been working on the domestic abuse bill in Parliament this year and last, where we lobbied to ensure that it delivers real change for survivors. Thirdly, our research team carries out research which informs the work of Women's Aid and informs the work of the sector. So we have published recently A Perfect Storm, which is available on our website, which looks at the effects of coronavirus on domestic abuse and on survivors. And that just ensures that we're operating where the need lies. We've got our direct services, amazing direct services team who are running at the moment a live chat for survivors, a survivors forum, which is peer-to-peer support for survivors, email support. And then we've got our No Women Turned Away project, which is for women facing barriers to refuges for any number of reasons, such as immigration status. And then finally, we run training. So this can be for individual level organizations. We're running a training called Ask Me at the moment, where we train ambassadors in the community. We realized that women are most likely to disclose about abuse to their peers, and we wanted to make sure that when they do choose to do that, they get the right response the first time. We empower survivors by keeping their voices at the heart of our work, working with and for women and children by listening to them and responding to their needs. Just a couple of statistics on domestic abuse in the UK. An estimated 1.6 million women experienced some form of domestic abuse in the year ending March 2020. On average, 3 women every fortnight were murdered by their male partner or ex-partner between 2016 and 2019. And then this is just a couple of stats on the coronavirus pandemic and its effect on domestic abuse. So 2/3 of survivors reported their abuser using lockdown and the virus itself as part of the abuse. Over 3/4 of survivors living with an abuser said they felt they could not leave or get away because of the pandemic. There was a 42% reduction in the number of refuge vacancies during the lockdown compared to the same period in 2019. And over half of survivors who had experienced domestic abuse in the past said the pandemic had triggered memories of abuse and affected their mental health. So Cords is just going to talk you through some of our aspirations.
Thanks, Lizzie. We just wanted to talk about how your money can make a difference and kind of the positive change that it's going to make. We are looking to continue to grow our live chat. Currently, it's operating 10 till 6 during the week and 10 till 2 at the weekends, but we're hoping to keep growing that so we can keep helping more women. We know that, especially during the pandemic, during lockdown, when women have been trapped at home with their abusers, it's been more important than ever that they've been able to access support kind of subtly and safely. We're also looking to create bespoke projects for young women who might be experiencing abuse in their relationships. It was amazing to hear all about the work with the Girls Network, who are such a fabulous organisation. And yeah, we're looking at how we can preventatively act to stop domestic abuse and stop relationship abuse in those early stages. And we're also going to be launching a new major campaign later this year that I'm sure we'll be able to share details of when it comes. It'd be great to have all your support on that as well. But yeah, thanks. I've just put some support services here, and I'm sure we can send these slides around just because I think it's really good for everyone to know where to direct people, just in case anyone mentions something that you're worried about, that they're worried about, so we can share those with you all too. But that's all from us. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for fundraising for Women's Aid. And I really hope you enjoy the rest of your morning together. Sounds like you've got lots planned.
Thank you so much for joining us. And as you can see there, it is a great cause. The board of the North East have been doing various things, obviously in a COVID secure way. And I think we've already got £1,300 in the bank as at this morning. So obviously we're hoping to continue fundraising throughout this event and afterwards. And I think the link has just been dropped into the chat. So please, if you can spare a few quid, please do, because as you can see, it's going to a great cause. And there's the details. So I'm going to get stuck in now and tee you up for the panel session and just take you through a bit of information as to how and why we came up with the wish list. So as you know, we set Wish up in 2018 on International Women's Day, and over this time we've gathered insight from many women across the region informally as to what challenges they face and what they would like to see. And we decided last year to gather some more formal feedback, and we created a survey and we asked these questions. So as women working in the social housing sector, what challenges have you experienced? What's made a positive difference? What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? And if your employer could do one thing to improve your work experience, what would it be? And this is the information that came back. We are going to send the slides out, so I'm not going to go through all of this stuff because the content will be on the slides afterwards. But we held a webinar as well on the 9th of December, which we had over 50 people attended, and we went into workshops, and again we built on the feedback from the survey. So these were the challenges that women said that they'd faced, and I'm not going to go through all of them in great detail, but as you can see, they're not insignificant challenges. There's some serious stuff in there around mental health, redundancy, keeping up with the pace, obviously lockdown and homeschooling. So as you can see, there are a lot of challenges that women have faced, not just during the lockdown, but as well over the length of their careers. Next slide, please, Em. In terms of what has made the difference, I think some of this was really interesting. So being trusted to get on with the job that I do and being supplied with the information that I need, the support from colleagues, having a mentor and having a male mentor as well. I'm delighted. I want to use this opportunity actually to welcome the men that have joined us this morning, because it's so important that we have men talking about this agenda. So thank you for coming along. Opportunities to develop, having a flexible approach, a culture that values outcomes, not just hours worked, creating some time and some space for me, an understanding line manager, being surrounded by supportive women who will speak up and won't stand for discrimination, asking for support, getting feedback, and surrounding myself with positive people, seeing diversity in the workplace. Oops, we've gone back over. And companies aligning their values to employee needs. I think one of the things that struck me about this type of work is it's not really the job that you do, it's where you do it. And leadership and culture has had such an impact in relation to this agenda. So in terms of what women would like to see less of and more of, next slide, please, So this is what we would like to see less of. And like I said, I will circulate these slides, but there's a long list of things there that you would probably expect to see. And then what women would like to see more of. Next slide, please, And again, when I look at this, I think that one of the things that strikes me is all of this stuff is doable. At our previous WISH sessions, we've seen some fantastic examples of what goes on across the region, and it doesn't feel like it's too much to ask. So in terms of the one thing that women felt they would like to see, and that's the next slide, please, is these are the one things that women said would improve their work experience. And like I said, I don't think there's too much to ask there in terms of being able to deliver on this. So from the event, and there's a slide there that says this came across as well, that I feel my employer is great and I can't think of everything. And I think, again, one of the things that struck me is that the difference between organisations is becoming quite stark now, in terms of some organisations that are getting this right and some organisations that that need to deliver on some of the things that that women are asking for. Next slide, please, So in terms of feedback from the event, it was very much more of the same. They wanted better support when they were going through transitions. They wanted to know your people, understand the challenges, what the barriers are, what they bring. What was interesting that came from the trades was somebody has said, I've been working out the van for years, but when it hits you in the ivory towers, you respond to it overnight. You know, in terms of that connectivity and getting people online. Trust came across very much. If you've got an organisation where you feel where staff feel trusted, then productivity increases. Real role models. We are not glossy all of the time. Some of us aren't glossy any of the time. Keep it real. Think about some of the messages that you send out. Obviously, at Christmas, the government didn't quite get that right around the role of women at Christmas, for example. And it's been proven time and time again that when you trust staff to organise themselves, they do more, not less, and engagement increases, productivity increases, customer satisfaction increases. Be honest about the challenges that you face. And I thought this was a really interesting one as well, that women need to be where decisions are being made, and you shouldn't have to be exceptional to get a seat at the table. And men need these things too. They want to attend the sports days, they want to attend the doctor's appointments, they want to go to the nativity plays. And when our policies reflect this, it makes women's life easier. So don't push that burden. Next slide, please, Em. And again, more of the same sort of stuff. But I think, again, what struck me from this particular slide was about the depth of relationships are important to us. We want choice, we want a mixture. There's the broader role that women play in society. Feminism isn't just a women's issue. Doing equality impact assessments properly, putting the health into health and safety, including mental health. So there's all of those things there. So we took all of this content and we pulled together a wish list. Next slide, please, Em. And so we pulled together this wish list, and this is what this event is about. And this, like I said at the beginning, this is in the context of there are many examples of organisations doing some great things, and we do showcase that regularly. But this is what was coming across loud and strong. So trust us was really the number one thing. And as I've said, research has shown that when staff feel trusted, productivity performance, staff retention, innovation, customer satisfaction all increase. And many organisations are getting that right, but there are examples where they're not. And obviously the pandemic has forced us into an intense change in our working environment. So it's important that we do get that right. Flexibility and choice. Additional support is essential though, and formal work from home policies need embedding into the company culture. COVID's forced the question about, is 9 to 5 the only way to go? What about part-time, term time, whatever works time? And many WISH members wanted flexible cultures that value outcomes over hours worked, and shared parental responsibility needs to be addressed as well. So overwhelmingly, members wanted this newfound flexibility to continue post-pandemic. I think the dilemma has been, obviously, we haven't been able to experience that at its best whilst we've been doing the homeschooling gig as well. But obviously, as that changes over time, then people want these policies to stay in place. To be heard and understood, listen to us was another critical wish. And it's important that employers take the time to discover what staff need to do the jobs well. They want approachable managers. They want to be able to talk about unrealistic expectations. And sometimes it's just a conversation is all that's needed. Many members wanted employers to know them, the real them, and the positives that they bring and the challenges that they face. And communication is obviously essential, and something that came across was, if staff aren't talking, it's because employers aren't listening. So that was something that came across loud and clear. To have influence in positions of influence. When you look at the lack of diversity in positions of influence in the North East, members felt that some of these top-down solutions could often overlook women's needs. So it's important that we're represented where the decisions are being made. And then to see diversity and authenticity embraced. Obviously, our customers are diverse. Members want to see that reflected in the workforce, particularly at higher levels. Forward-thinking, inclusive organisations can only advocate fully for the communities that they represent, with diverse women present in positions of influence. Diversity brings different perspectives that improve the workplace. It improves performance, productivity, innovation, and customer satisfaction. So I think we hope that wish list reflects what women want, and we do want some feedback later on in the event. But I think the challenge is that we do need action on it. As you know, I've been around a long time, probably about 30 years now. And I think our sector's been talking about creating equal and diverse and inclusive workplaces for a long time, and we really need to up the pace and make sure that we get action quickly. So that was our wish list. And then next slide, please, Em. This is what more we felt that employers can do, and really it's about challenging themselves to do more, even when they think that they're getting it right. So do you cultivate a culture of trust? Do your staff feel trusted? Would they tell you if they didn't? Identify what flexibility and choice staff have. Be specific. Is it enough? Identify what decisions staff can make, and what do they have to ask permission for? Interrupting women is a thing. Call it out in meetings. We had so many examples of people talking about the time when that's happened to them. Does staff feel included? Get to know your staff. Find out about the challenges that they face. How can you help? Look at which teams where there's not a 50% representation on them and sort it out and change the narrative around the male and female roles. What opportunities are there in your organisation to learn and develop and support networking and mentoring? Do your staff feel that they are at the best at the work, and would they tell you if they weren't? What would help? How do you encourage authenticity in the workplace, and what more can you do? What is the real impact of the decisions that you make? And get those equality and impact assessments done properly. I think I do go to a lot of things where they're more of an add-on rather than embedded. And I think we really need to make progress on some of those. what makes time and what takes time in your organisation. And then obviously diversity is more than gender and race. It's about a whole range of things. So we think that it's important that it's treated like it's business critical, like the COVID response was, because in reality it is. And then fish in a different pool for recruitment and selection. I think there is so many opportunities out there to get some of this stuff better. So that is our ask to employers, which is what the panel is going to be discussing shortly. And then in terms of a bit of a parting shot from myself, next slide, please, obviously, there's things that you can do. Obviously, we are all employees, but there's things that women can do themselves. So I think the first one is about trust yourself and be trustworthy. And that's about knowing your values, knowing what's important to you, being clear about what you are about, and find an organisation that matches your values. Obviously, you can't control everything that happens to you, but you can choose how you respond to it. And you need people who support you when you're not in the room. And the ask is that you are that ally and that you support others when they are there, but equally you support them when they're not there as well. Take responsibility and call it out. I have a saying, which is you teach people how to treat you by what you allow and what you stop. So stand up for yourself and others. Sometimes it's hard to be that person that says something, but it is those choices that define you. And it's important that we do tackle those things. Empower others and spend your time with people that encourage you, not discourage you. Energy is contagious. One of the things that people say they like about these events is the energy that it creates. So surround yourself with people that see the best in you, even when you don't see it yourself. Listen and seek to understand. So be curious, seek out people who disagree with you and who have alternative views. Listen and seek to understand what they are. Be present and step forward and seek out opportunities. I get invited to loads of things where my heart's saying no, but my gob says yes, because you've got to get yourself into a space sometimes where you feel comfortable being uncomfortable. Find out what's going on, engage in it and be keen. And then I think there's something in there about being supportive and asking for support. So surround yourself with people who lift you up and not drag you down, and hold that door open. Surround yourself with, there's a lovely saying, which is surround yourself with women who would mention your name in a room full of opportunities. And our ask is that you be that type of woman. Find a tribe that you can rely on for help and support and challenge. And these are the people who don't tell you what you want to hear, but they are the people that tell you what you need to hear. And they are your mates. So I think it's important that you find that tribe. And then be authentic and be yourself. This is so important. Know your strengths, get feedback and keep it real. Obviously, women are diverse. We want you to own that diversity. Bring your whole self to work and don't feel that you have to fit a stereotype of how a woman leader looks and behaves. So with that, our last ask is go on, we dare you. Obviously, we want you to really engage in this process. So the next slide, please, Obviously, one of the things that I say quite frequently is all you can do is what you can from where you are with what you've got. And my challenge to Wish Women in Social Housing is don't be a bystander. Obviously, most of you, if all of you in this event, are probably pretty privileged, and it's important that we put that privilege to good use. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Lucy, who is going to let the panel introduce themselves and respond to that presentation. Over to you, Lucy. Thank you.
Right, brilliant. Thank you, Caroline, so much. I think the research and the wish list is a fantastic achievement, a fantastic bit of work. And, you know, and as a board, you should be really proud at Wish North East of having delivered that. You know, it does starkly highlight the challenges that are out there. And, you know, really is time not to go back to normal. You know, we've got the opportunity now to make the difference, and that's what we need to do. So my name is Lucy Malarkey and I'm director at Positive About Inclusion. We're a new consultancy who work with organisations to help them on their inclusion journey. So it's really important that, you know, it works for an organisation. I'm not going to say anything more just now because we're joined virtually by a fantastic lineup of speakers. And like Caroline said, they've all been given a brief of talking for about 8 minutes, which sounds incredibly precise, Caroline, about 8 minutes, introducing themselves and sharing what strikes them about the wish list and the research. And then there's plenty of opportunity for questions. So please put your questions in the chat and I will try and keep control of it all as we're going along. It might be a lot, but I'm sure we'll get through it. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sandra, who's the Race Equality Director at Business in the Community, but I'm sure she might like to say a little bit more. So Sandra, are you there?
Yes, I am. And thank you so much, Lucy, for that introduction. And when I spoke to Caroline about the event, I just kind of loved her immediately. When I saw the presentation, when I saw the wish list, I thought how fabulous. So first thing I want to say is I love the wish list, love the insight from the research, and will want to share it more widely with business in the community. So I work for the Responsible Business, the Prince of Wales Responsible Business Network, looking at employers who really want to make change. And I'm the director of the RAISE campaign, which is 25 years old. And we are really trying to work with employers, particularly to think about ethnicity and inclusion. We also have a gender campaign as well. So thanks for the introduction. Just a bit about myself. I was born to Windrush generation parents. So at the end of that Windrush lot that came over to the UK, raised on a poor housing estate, no social networks or connections. I find it actually fascinating that I do the role I do now, because you think, how do you go from not knowing anybody and not having any family or anybody to help you to get to this point where you engage with business leaders and policymakers in government. But also, so I've got the experience of, working my way up step by step, the grind, the applications, trying to connect with, or trying to showcase my talents. What I loved from is the being authentic, just being yourself. It's exhausting trying to pretend to be someone else. And I think being on, finding that place to be that in a way, and finding those safe spaces and people that you can trust. I think another thing that I really love is about the empowerment of others, helping others to, lifting as you climb. So thinking in terms of community, women standing together. And I think one of the ways that we can all do that, and as women on this call, we'll all know this scenario where you have the idea, you come up with it within 10 minutes of the meeting, and you say, I think we should do this, and everyone's like, And then 10 minutes before the meeting closed, a male, sorry men, I do like you, but a male rewords your suggestion, and everyone's like, oh yes, I think we should go with what Johnny said. And you think, hold on, in the first 10 minutes. So I think one thing that we can all do as women together is attribute to ensure the correct people get credit for the ideas, because we know that's linked to progression and opportunity. And I know through the research I have done with ethnic minority workers and women, attribution. We did a report last August looking at Black voices, so following the King of George Floyd, saying, what kind of some of the challenges. And when we asked, do you feel you get credit for your work? Only 49% of Black women said yes to that, compared to 57% of all the other ethnicity groups. So if you think about something that you want to do to help, is making sure the right person gets credit for the ideas in the meetings, because that helps you to progress to get to those top tables. The second thing I think is really important is being a mentor. So I've seen that in the feedback. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without people who are prepared to help and with challenge and insight and challenge. When I said, oh no, I don't think so, because they're no role models, and said, why not? I see, I think you can, and here's some insights, here's my experience. So we really encourage what we call two-way mentoring. So you get mentored by the person from a different background to help you understand, and then they also benefit from your leadership and your experience. So really, and I've not met anybody who's been two-way mentored who thinks it's horrible. Most people think it's fabulous. It works with male, female, with younger, older. I'm allowed to say older, mature, and also with ethnicity. So, and then the third thing that I think is really important is the sponsorship. So we've already touched on it, you know, Caroline's touched on everything about those people who talk about you nicely behind your back, who open up opportunities, who when things are being talked about, you're not even there, and they're saying, oh, I think you should, what about this person? I've worked with them. So that door opening, that opportunity opening piece is something simple that we can all do so that we can actually realize that vision of what should present representation look like at that table. How can we enable that people with the talent? I mean, you know, the exam question for the UK is that if you are from a low socioeconomic background, no matter what your ethnicity is, how do they tap into that talent to ensure you get your to the top table? I mean, you know, only who knows what's in people, cures to diseases and, you know, all of the things that we're trying to tackle, but because they don't have social networks and support around them, their ideas and their initiative doesn't get to the top table. So coming down to a landing, because I'm not going to be the horrible person who overruns her 8 minutes. Just the thing, I love the comment that Caroline, that you teach people how to treat you. I think, you know, we know that the best thing that we can do is be consistent so that if our name goes forward, people know who they're talking about because we're aligned to our values. We decide early what we're not prepared to compromise on so that we can look after our mental health. Because I think some of the challenges is if you feel like, I don't think I'm, you know, they're forcing me not to be real. So I think being real is really important. And then the other thing really are all of our responsibilities to call it out, to listen, to understand. And if we see something, we think, I don't know if that's right. We can say, I don't know, that seems right. You know, use our voice to call out things that we see that we think, that doesn't look right to me. Ask and query. And sometimes just by asking that question, or if you observe something, using your voice can just be like, thank you, someone else has noticed that this is going on. Don't just stand by it and say nothing. Speak up, you'll feel much better for doing that. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'm going to give space for others to contribute. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Sandra. That was really insightful. And I think, you know, you sharing some of your own story there does just highlight how self-belief and authenticity, you know, can really go a long way, and nothing's impossible, you know, if we believe in it and support each other to help each other achieve it. So that was great. Thank you. So I'm going to move on to Helen, please, if Helen's there, to introduce yourself. Brilliant. Thank you. Over to you, Helen.
Thanks, Lucy. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Managing Director of Wish, the whole of Wish, if you like. So we are very lucky in that we have regions across the whole of England, part of Wales, and hopefully Scotland soon, which is great. And I'm delighted to have been asked by the North East to come along today. This is such a good event, but mainly it was because of the box, if I'm honest, Caroline. So thanks. So I have been Managing Director for Wish since the 1st of December, so relatively new into post. And for those of you who aren't aware, we're 23 years old this year, and our founder, Nicola Dibb, along with Deborah Constance, are still heavily involved. Nicola is remaining on the board of directors for the Community Interest Company, and Deborah is still our chair. And that's really good to have that level of consistency. Now, from my perspective, I'm going to use my 8 minutes as wisely as I can, Sandra, as well, because neither do I want to be that person that runs over. And I think I wanted to focus on a couple of the bits from the wish list, really. There's a few years ago, I did an MBA because that was one of my commitments to myself in order to get myself better. I've just been having a nice little chat with Scott in the chat function about having ideas taken from you or not really believing. You know, when you're in a meeting and you make an idea and then somebody else makes it and everyone listens to them. For years, I've said, well, I just wasn't very clear. It's my communication. I think I'm at the point now where most people who know me would say, it's probably not your communication, Helen. You're quite clear at communicating. So it probably wasn't that all along, which is starting to make me feel slightly better on the one hand and angry on the other hand. But I did an MBA, and one of the things that struck me so strongly in that MBA was something called Theory X and Theory Y from a HR perspective. Now, some of you might know this, so bear with me, but some of you might not. So Theory X, and these are management styles. Theory X is based on assumptions regarding the typical worker. And they assume that the typical worker has little ambition, avoids responsibility, and is individually goal orientated. So in real terms, that means your boss thinks you're lazy, you can't be bothered, and unless you're sat in the office with them watching over you, you're not going to do any work. Theory Y assumes employees are internally motivated, they enjoy their job, and they want to work better. They want to better themselves, to make themselves better at their jobs. And actually, it's the job satisfaction that motivates people. So put in layperson's terms, that means your boss thinks you want to do a good job, you just need the right tools around you to do it. And what really struck me from the wish list was this: they want to be trusted and they want flexibility and choice. And I think that comes through again and again for me when I talk about flexible working. I talk about some of my own experiences because it's impossible to have got to my age and be a parent of 2 and have worked in senior management and not to have, I think, good and bad experiences of this. I wrote an article for 24 Housing a few years ago talking about missing my eldest daughter's 5th birthday. And I missed her 5th birthday because I was working in a job that was more than an hour away from my home. And I was expecting to work in the daytime, but obviously I would come home for birthday tea and be very excited. But about 6 months prior to that date, 6 months prior, a board meeting got put into the diary. And I was an exec director at this stage. And I went to my chief exec and said, really sorry, won't be able to make this board meeting. It's Isla's 5th birthday. And the response I got was, well, I suppose I can't make you come, but it will be severely frowned upon if you don't turn up, and it will impact your job. Now, I was thinking back probably about 37, 38 maybe. I was new into senior management. And of course, if you're going to be brutal about it, of course I had a choice. You always have a choice. And I could have gone, do you know what? I don't care. My daughter is more important. And in hindsight, that's exactly what I should have done. The truth of it was, I was scared it would impact my career so much. And I justified it in my head to the fact that my daughter was 5 and probably wouldn't remember. She doesn't, by the way, which is good. But the truth of it is, I didn't feel like I had a choice. And I think so much of what we're seeing on this wish list is about choice. And actually, yes, it's very easy for somebody with a lot of power to say, well, of course you've got a choice. But the truth of it is there is explicit power and there is implicit power. And on the one hand, they can say words that give you a choice. And on the other, they can imply that it will detriment you in ways that you're not comfortable with. And I think a lot of this wish list is really getting to that point, which is this isn't, I don't think most organisations are actively seeking to limit flexible working for people, whether you're male or female. We all have caring responsibilities at some point. But the truth of it is, the majority of people still don't feel like they've got true flexibility. And for clarity, when I say flexibility, I don't mean just the ability to work at home, or everyone works from home 2 days a week. True flexibility is about what works for you. And if that is being in an office 5 days a week because you want that contact, you don't want to be working at home, your home environment is rubbish, whatever the reason, then that's great. And if your flexibility means, can I work from home 3 days a week and come in and do 2 long days in the office because then I can get my meetings in, that's what I'm talking about. And actually, unless we still don't feel like we have that choice in a lot of situations. There are some amazing organisations out there, and I've been lucky enough to work for a few of them where I really had genuine choice. And obviously, there's always boundaries around that because of the organisations that you work in. But I think my strong message for today is to employers is absolutely, we see the good intention that's out there, but perception is everything. And this wish list is saying that the majority of people still aren't perceiving that they have choice, that they have flexibility, and that they have your trust. In which case, it's not a criticism, but could you just look at it again? Could you take it back to the coalface and talk to the people that it's impacting on and ask them, not what you think needs to look like in a flexible working policy, but what they need from a flexible working policy. And my message to everyone else is that just because someone says you have a choice doesn't mean they're implying you have a choice. So this is where your network is so important, to give you that boost so you can go back to them and be brave and go out and say, you said I had a choice and I'm going to do the thing you think I'm not going to do because you've put pressure on me not to do it. And that is the bit that is brave, because the reality is you just don't know what's going to happen as a result of that. But I can tell you now, I've made some really, what might look on paper like crazy decisions in my career and in my life. And the truth of it is I'm really happy. You know, I'm doing jobs that I love, maybe a little bit too many hours in them, but I'm doing the jobs that I love. I'm in a good position. I have choice and I have control for the most part. And ultimately, fortune favors the brave. So just do it, but build your network around you so that you've got that support from people. So when you do it, they cheer with you and they pick you up if it doesn't go well. So I think that's my 8 minutes, Lucy. Back to you.
I think that's wonderful. I don't know why everybody's worried. I must have think I'm an ogre that I'm going to be doing something when anybody goes over their 8 minutes. But anyway, no, that was really great. Thanks, Helen. You know, I'm just looking in the chat there, seeing that some people from different organisations have been putting in about how supportive and flexible their organisations have been. And certainly, you know, at the event for all of us who were there in December, the last Wish North East event, we heard from several organisations who are doing the right thing, you know, as Caroline said before, are creating the right environment, obviously have leaders who are very committed to providing the true flexibility that you talk about there, and the, you know, the real choice. You know, I think what struck me on the wish list is the irony about trust being number one, when, you know, at the time of a global pandemic, we were all being asked to be trusted. And so it should have been something, you know, that was happening, but actually that's number one, because obviously, even though we were asked to be trusted, we didn't feel, coming back to your point about perception, you know, because perception is reality, that we were actually trusted or are still being trusted to do our jobs effectively, along with homeschooling and everything else that's been going on at the moment. So that was great. Thank you so much, Helen. Okay, so we are going to move over now, please, to David, please. Are you there, David?
Hi, Lucy. Yes.
Oh, you are. Brilliant.
How are you doing, everybody? It's a pleasure to be here. So my name's David Langhorne. I wanted to give you a brief intro for those of you who don't know me, because there's quite a few people here that I don't know. And for those of you who do know me, please don't heckle. I've been warned by a couple by text this morning that they may. So I've worked in the public sector for 23 years and in social housing for 16 years. I work for Your Homes Newcastle, which is now More of Newcastle City Council, member of the exec team made up of 3 directors and an MD, a woman MD for that matter. So we look after 26,000 homes and tenancies across a diverse core city. My job is Assets and Development Director. So I look after 650 employees, male-orientated workforce, because I look after the repairs and construction services, but also have really strong women leaders in the directorate as well, across asset management, regeneration, and other areas that you would commonly find in a assets and development directorate. I'm also the lead exec team member, linking directly to our staff network groups, covering all things EDI. And by the way, our staff network groups have successfully been relaunched recently after getting stuck in a bit of a rut. I think many organisations find that. And they're now proven to be a huge asset in helping us understand where our real hidden, hard to deal with EDI challenges lie in the organisation. I think that's hugely important to have, to peel back the layers and find that out. This is mainly because they've got faith that myself and the leadership have demonstrated that they're being trusted, empowered and heard. And of course, making an actual difference. So they're not just talking about things, they're seeing actual change as a result of their efforts. You'll recognise some of those words that I've used there have come through in your wish list. So that for me proves that the wish list is hitting the spot. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about equality from my experience, and also wanted to start off by commenting on the principle of the wish list. It's a great list, and I think it's hugely important that we all kind of buy into it and drive it forward. But what I was going to say was, out of the 23 years in my career, my bosses have been women for 20 of those. So it's fair to say that my career has been a success thanks to the guidance, development and leadership of strong and successful female leaders. So as a result of that, I guess when I'm asked to talk about the wish list, I'm at a little bit of a loss as what to say. I know that's not great when you've been asked to speak, but I have pondered it and thought about it. So seriously, for me, everything on the wish list is what women should expect, not wish for, without having to write it on a list. I think it's quite ridiculous in this day and age that it's needed, but it clearly is. And I do think with help from people, men, to appreciate the lived challenges women are continuing to face in the workplace, it can make a real difference. I'd like to think things are getting a bit better, and the wish list will allow everyone to take even more ownership of seeking equality. Perhaps my optimism is because I work in an organisation associated to a council that embraces pay equality and equal opportunities, and we've got a really good gender balance, and I think that makes us a more successful organisation. So this isn't just about balancing the genders, it does really see great results when you achieve it. So we've got 7 women, 7 men on our leadership teams, and we've got more women in management positions than men in YHN, and we've got a really robust measure in place across the council in YHN to ensure pay equality is met. But sadly, that's not the case when we're looking at the gender pay gap nationally. And of course, like Chris mentioned earlier, from 13, we've got real issues in terms of gender balance in areas like our repairs service. I know Caroline mentioned something there about professional snobbery in repairs, and I think I know what that's getting at. And it's a gender thing, I would suggest, but we can talk about that later. But as part of our International Women's Day, we've been celebrating our women in construction, and hopefully you'll see a piece in the news next week about one of our female operatives who's working in a very male-orientated workforce. And we're having a real drive to get women into construction, not just to break up the boys' club, but it's because that's what our women customers want as well. But enough about me bragging about my organisation. It's important that even progressive organisations avoid complacency and avoid that professional arrogance, which is another term I'll throw in there. Organisations often think we're better than we are, let's be honest. The wish list is a stark reminder of that when I look at that. So I should explain what I mean by professional arrogance. So a little while ago, a potential equality issue came to my attention. My response was, surely we can't do more than we already do. We do so much. We're a really good organisation. But the reality is there's always more you can do, and you have to have people who drive forward the equality agenda, like your organisation through your wish list. There's always somebody in the organisation who's suffering from inequality. So the conversations need to be ongoing. Organisations like yours need to choose to challenge like you are doing, as nobody's got it nailed, let's be honest. Key thing for me looking at the wish list, it's about humans. Behind equality, diversity, inclusion, policies, procedures and action plans, which are really important, are humans, people with ambition, human emotions, fears, anxieties, frustration, anger and upset, working with people with conscious and unconscious biases. The many keywords come from the wish list are human emotions. I think that's a take-home message for me. It makes it even more powerful. It's not a lot to ask, is it? And for me, it's that human aspect we need to properly get right to embed equality into the DNA of an organisation. It's the personal element of translating lists and action plans into reality for people. So we all know that leadership and colleagues need to understand the lived experiences of those experiencing inequality. The words in the wish list demonstrate that people still have lived experiences that they don't always feel trusted, heard, understood and supported, and because of their gender. So as Caroline says, this is an opportunity to try and get things sorted and really push things on. A key thing for me is that leaders have real ownership of EDI. That's genuine and emotionally invested, and it's really important for people who are in these staff network groups or whatever that they see that genuine and emotionally invested leaders who are listening, truly listening. Colleagues aren't daft, and they know when leaders are not being authentic. And obviously I'm picking out the word authentic from the wish list there because I think it's so important. To truly get what we need, a more representative leadership team across all characteristics as identified in the wish list, I think the wish list points around diversity, influence and authenticity are hugely important for the things I've just mentioned there before. Also, I couldn't agree more on the point of wanting to be heard. We may think we know our people, anonymous surveys, focus groups and so on do help, but in any organisation there will be people afraid to flag their experience of inequality, but they're the people we really need to hear from. So having the confidence to speak up is so important to help achieve any change. In terms of the wish list point around diversity in positions of influence and power, this is coming through loud and clear from YHN staff network groups. I've been told by a black colleague that it resonates with him that our board and leadership team are all white. People need to have role models, proving the organisations allowing people from similar backgrounds to achieve success, and it's the same with getting that gender balance on leadership teams for women. So yeah, just to finish off, so I don't know if I've gone over my 8 minutes, mind Lucy. But to finish off and to go back to the original earlier point, what landed with me about the wish list was it should be an expectation list. It's not a lot to ask for women in a sector that should embrace women. There's nothing in that anybody, regardless of your gender, race, sexual orientation or any characteristic, should not expect. And I just wonder if it may be an idea to ask organisations to sign up to support the wish list as part of their collective drive to tackle inequality and kind of help this organisation on the way to achieving it. And I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you so much. Oh, excuse me. Thank you so much, David. It's great to have a voice of an ally on the panel. And I think, you know, something you said there about the wish list being about human issues, it really resonated with me, because it is, you know, like you say, it's not something unreasonable on the wish list. You know, whilst the challenges, you know, do have some of the challenges, arguably some of the hardest to sort, are particular female related issues, the wish list itself is about all of us as humans. It's not unreasonable, it's not unrealistic, but we've obviously got work still to do. So that's great. Thank you, David. Now I'm going to, not introduce you, she's going to introduce herself, although probably doesn't need a lot of introduction. And certainly there's been some, you know, you've got some expectations from the chat here, Angela, as being a fantastic leader in your organisation. So I'm going to hand over now to Angela, as our final speaker as part of the panel. Angela.
Wow, set me up, won't you, Lucy?
Absolutely.
Thanks for that. I'm Angela Lockwood. I'm Chief Exec of North Star Housing Group based down in Stockton-on-Tees, which is where I'm at today. And I've been Chief Exec for about 10 years. And I find myself on the Business and the Community Advisory Board in the North East. Sandra, looking at EDI issues. We were also founding members of the Girls Network down here, which is a fantastic girls mentoring scheme. And as an organisation, we have 5 women's refuges, we have a scheme for women with complex needs, a homeless person scheme for women, and on I could go. So you can see that we're very much into gender issues, EDI issues generally as well. And I have spent the summer getting very close to EDI, I'll be honest, across a whole range of the headings. And I'm kind of in the gathering mode. I'm really listening and learning because interesting stuff's emerging. And I would just want to share the last 2 weeks with you. The wish list for me is fantastic. And that wish list, by the way, with Caroline's permission, has gone off to the National Housing Federation. And as and I'm the EDI lead for the North East NHF Chief Execs Group. And with that hat on, it's going to go into the Chief Execs meeting as well. And the chair is very welcoming of that. So that's great. So it's going to hit the Chief Execs in the North East. But that aside, can I just share the last 2 weeks with you? Because it just kind of sums up things for me, and it sums up where I'm at in terms of my gathering. So earlier in the week, I listened to the Global Institute for Women's Leadership seminar, and it was by the wonderful Julia Gillard, who was the ex-Prime Minister of Australia. And she talked about a survey, Ipsos Mori survey that's just been done. And I listened with interest. By the way, if you watch no other YouTube event, watch Julia Gillard versus Tony Abbott in the Australian House, because that was misogyny at its very best or worst, depending how you're looking upon it. Never seen anything quite like it. She stood her ground, but my goodness, what she took was just incredible. And I've already been reading quite a lot of this stuff. And what is emerging is that when crisis strikes, women are the hardest hit by economic impacts. So in the pandemic, what's emerging is really negative impacts on women, disproportionately compared to men. And that's mainly because women generally earn less, they have less savings, they're the majority of single parent households. They disproportionately hold more insecure jobs, the lower paid, where they're less likely to be able to work from home. If you think of the care sector, they've done more of the homeschooling with the children, and on and on and on I could go. So if you think about it, we've already started from a very unequal base. We've gone into a pandemic, and actually, if we're not careful, all of the gains that we've made are going to go all the way back, because we are starting to lose ground because the pandemic has hit women worse. And that's a real concern for me, and that's coming through. And that was discussed at length earlier in the week. And that's happening across the world, by the way. That's not just in the UK. And I think that's because women's progress has been hesitant, and we're on fragile ground. So when something happens, we go back very quickly because it's not robustly held. And the pandemic is starting to identify and highlight all of that. And I mean, the irony of it all is that it's also highlighted society's reliance on women, particularly when you think of frontline in the home. So there's real irony in all of this as I'm reading it all. But it's exposed structural inequalities more so. More things have been amplified. And there is a call for the government to have a women's strategy to tackle all of this. In fact, today, something just popped up on my screen which said, women are in furlough longer and more women are furloughed. So anyway, it's starting to gather a momentum. So that happened this week, and I was starting to think about what's going on here. And also in the middle of the pandemic, we had to reaccredit for our investors and people. And we're a platinum organisation, and I thought, oh goodness, we've had massive disruption in the organisation, but we've got to go for accreditation. What is it going to tell us? And 93% of our staff responded to the survey. 100% of staff said that they had trust in the leadership of the organisation, and 98% of staff felt they were trusted to get on with the job. Now, that was hugely helpful and rewarding as chief exec of an organisation, because it says that we did something all right, really, in the middle of a pandemic. However, what is also emerging is that those organisations that have a natural prevalence towards directive leadership have gone back to directive leadership big time in the pandemic. So what it's done is it's kind of reinforced old ways of operating, because you go back to what you know best, or what you like, or where your preference is. So this is a gap that we have to watch as well, because those people who like to be in direct control may well continue with that directive control well into the future, because there's a reason for doing it. When in actual fact, actually, this is the time when you have to collaborate, you have to trust more, and you have to be bold and courageous around that. So there's a gap emerging there, and the IIP assessor said to us that those organisations that were highly trusted had been really strengthened through the pandemic. Those organisations that weren't were suffering and struggling. So there's already research emerging. So that's the gap that we have to watch as well. So we've got all of these things that we have to watch. And trust is about everything that we do. So working from home, flexible work, and everything that women want will be fine if we can really get trust operating properly in organisations. It really will work fine, because we trust people to do the right things and to get on with it. So you don't have to have fancy systems, because you trust people. So trust should never be underestimated, in my opinion. So that was impactful. So I was starting to think about that during the week. And then a couple of other things that I'll share with you. And again, you'll expect nothing other than provocation from me, and that's what you're going to get. But a few things. So I've been watching the news, and the very sad unfolding of Sarah Everard's disappearance and where that's led to. It has to be spoken about in International Women's Week. And everything that comes from that around women being very scared about going out, and the commentary that comes back, which is why didn't she get a taxi? Well, Can you not walk these days? Is it her fault? It's not her fault. Watch the press. The press are trying to make it somebody else's fault. And I was watching the press this week as well, and this is very controversial, but I was listening to some of the stuff around the royal family, and how, you know, a member of the royal family happens to say that she had a mental health issue, and then she's being told she's a liar because she happens to speak her truth. Whatever you think about the fallout of all of this, if a woman says she's had a mental health problem, she's had a mental health problem. It's nobody's position to challenge her on that. So that really bothered me, you know, in this week that we're in. What's going on here? What happened to the Be Kind agenda on the back of Caroline Flack? That's what I thought. And where am I in this? Where am I in all of this? And what's my thinking on all of this? And what am I doing in all of this? Because I think you have to take it all the way back to yourself. Where am I? And then earlier in the week as well, I had some unconscious bias training. I've been unconsciously bias trained forever, but you can never get enough of it. So, honestly, I promise you. And we did it with our board. And that sent me off as well, thinking about language that we use. The language we use is so incredibly important. You know, if as a child you're told, you know, how many boys as children told the bossy? None. How many girls are told as a child the bossy? Lots. Change that word to bold and suddenly things are different. You know, how many times have I been told I'm shrill? How many times have men been told they're shrill? Shrill has a negative connotation. We need to watch our language. You know, shrill and brusque is often a description of women. Directive and controlled is often a description of men. You know, language here is incredibly important. And so that's taken me into the language place as well. So I've had a very, very interesting week of it, I can tell you. I am really concerned about where it leaves women. However, what I would say is we do need to be bold. We need to be courageous as women, and we do need to call it out. We need to call it out. And I know it's difficult, and I know why we don't call it out. It's because we want to be included. And being excluded is not a good place to be. It's not a comfortable place to be. It's a fear. But once you get over your fear, you can call it out, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen, really, is that they don't really like what you say, but at least you feel better for doing it. And so it takes me into that place where I just need to ramp it up. We all need to ramp it up. We can't allow women's issues to go backwards. We've got to keep progressing, and we've all got to do it together. So I feel quite emboldened actually about the future, because I'm with some wonderful women today, and I can be honest because I'm in a safe place, and I can say all the things that's on my mind. So there you go, I've shared them with you.
Angela, wonderful as always. Thank you so much. I love your changing of language from bossy to bold. You know, something so simple, but it is so powerful. And I think, you know, you're absolutely right. We are on fragile ground. You know, we really must seize the opportunity that we've got now to not let ourselves go backwards. And, you know, and I suppose take all of the fantastic things from the fantastic organizations and really share those and network to make sure that we're all learning the right thing. And I think it's great, Angela, that 98% trust at North Star. You know, you should be really, really proud of that. That's fantastic achievement. So really well done. So everybody, we are about to open for questions. So the chat's coming in so fast. So please do start typing some questions in there. And in the meantime, I'm going to start with one. And David, I'm going to pick on you. Oh, your video's gone, but I'm going to pick on you for the first question there, please. Because you talked about the importance of authenticity. And I think that is so important. I mean, everybody's touched upon it briefly, but you talked about it. And how do you, I was going to ask David, do you encourage authenticity then with people with whom you work and network?
The key thing for me, Lucy, in terms of authenticity is the fact that you're real with people and it's genuine. I think often when we're dealing with, whether it's a staff network group or any a member of our teams, leadership can come across as almost pre-rehearsed and saying what you need to say, but you got that genuineness of really listening and understanding, having empathy and compassion for the person's situation. and not being that layer or 3 layers detached from it. So, you know, for example, recent issues I've personally got involved in as a director, and I think that's unusual for organisations necessarily. So authenticity is that just being a real human. I use the word human because leadership need to be seen as such, and having that empathy. And I guess with peers and colleagues around the region within the sector, I think the authenticity side, I think that's probably a bigger challenge, because, you know, we can make direct input and benefits in our own organisations. It's a much trickier challenge to do in the sector. So maybe resonate things that Angela was just mentioning there were resonating. And in fact, you know, we've got some organisations, we know ours are probably all great. There's always things we can do better, but there are some real dinosaurs in the sector still as well. And they're the ones that are difficult to get to. So it's not an easy fix.
No, keep it real. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, David. I'm just seeing we've got a question in the chat there. I'm afraid I can't see who it's come from, but the question is about how we promote flexibility in the workplace, whilst maintaining a level playing field. So what about Angela? Would you like to take that one?
I think that's a great question, because what we're starting to get our heads around and what's emerging around flexible working is, I mean, what's not like, firstly, about flexible working, you know, not what's not like, but what's emerging, and this is another double bind for many women, is that out of sight is out of mind, and you can be forgotten about if there's no presenteeism. So what's emerging from some research is that those people who are in the office and present and see their bosses quite a lot and are involved on a human personal level quite a lot with others are getting promoted above and beyond the people who were not there. And I think this is a particular issue that we'll have to tackle over the next 12 to 18 months. It's an unintended consequence of flexible working. And those organisations who are really progressive will get their head around it and make sure that that doesn't happen. But for every woman who's out there thinking that flexible working is straightforward, it's sadly, these things are never straightforward. You know, the practical issues around flexible working are fine. It's what happens then as a consequence of flexible working that we have to watch out for. And I'm not saying we shouldn't then work flexibly, absolutely not. It's up to the organisation to sort that double bind out. It's not up to the individual to do it. So I think flexible working, I mean, for me, you know, what we'll do in our organisation and have done, we've created guiding principles with staff around when to come in, when not to come in, what they need to be in for, how do you protect trying to balance the cultural issues with the flexible issues, and, you know, trying to find something in the middle of this complexity that suits the organisation and the individual. But this is not easy stuff. And there's no good practice emerging because it's not been done before. So we're all working it out.
Yeah, all learning together. Brilliant. Thank you, Angela. We've got a question that I'd like to ask you, please, Sandra, which has come from Karen. So she's saying mentors are so important, both formally and informally, and asking how we can encourage women to use these skills to provide this type of support to their peers. So, Sandra, what do you think on that one?
Okay, so thank you. So interesting. So I think the power of mentoring, it really, as a mentor, it forces you to really think through what you know, to actually deconstruct it and really kind of examine it, which actually is a huge confidence booster, because you think, I know a lot. You realize because of your experience, there's so much you know, and it forces you to really formalize that. I think the second thing it does is really make you also think through the almost like the forensic of the expertise. So you deconstruct it. So what is confidence? You have to kind of dismantle it. You can't just say, oh, just speak up or whatever. What does it mean? So it forces you to really deconstruct the skills you have, which helps you to actually examine and understand them better. And then the third thing, it is so rewarding when the person you mentor comes and tells them about the little breakthrough or the whatever they had because of your input. it works. It's just that, you know what, there's more to life than just this. It's so inspirational when people say, thank you so much, because I wouldn't have tried until you challenged me or helped me to see, maybe through sharing your experience. And then the fourth thing I say, it's always still quite selfish, but actually very useful. It's fabulous for dining out, although we're not really going out, but actually gives you lots of stories to be able to talk about how your leadership extends beyond just the workplace, but beyond, and how actually you're inputting into people's lives. And so really, and encouraging, and the two-way mentoring principle, you get to hear, it's like a window into a different world and lived experience, some insights and stories, and realize that actually maybe there is something about this, and what can I do? So you find that, again, that gives you more insight and information that you can share when conversations and debates and things happen, because you'll know real people who have had struggle, and you think, why? You know, this should be quite straightforward. So a real, absolutely worth it. And, you know, you just need to be empathetic and want to, you know, want to support someone. There is material all over the place to help you with insight on how to be a good mentor.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, 100% agree. You know, actively mentoring myself and having been a mentee, you know, that two-way thing, you're on both sides, if you like. You can gain so much. It's a fantastic experience. I would encourage everybody to, you know, to look into things like the Girls Network and other opportunities. Like Sandra says, there's a lot of stuff online that you can find out more about how to be a mentor, or actually get mentoring yourself. And sort of onto that mentoring question, nice segue, lovely question from Caroline. And I'm going to ask Helen this one, please. And she asks, what advice would you give to an early career professional who perhaps might feel intimidated to call it out? So Helen, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Caroline, because if I think most of us, if we're brutally honest with each other and ourselves, will have allowed certain things to happen because it was actually just easier than calling it out. So no one is alone if that's happened to you, so please don't feel bad. I think the big thing for me that has worked over the years, so two things, but the personal one is having that group of people around you, your tribe that Caroline talked about earlier. And I don't mean just sort of like the people who can go on, you can do it, but there's something about having your group. And I've been really lucky, some of you will have heard me speak about this, I've been really lucky over lockdown to create to be part of a new group of women who we all meet and support each other and generally just have a laugh one night a week over Zoom, most of whom I've never met in real life, by the way, which is it's just brilliant. And what has really come through from that group is that they have become a really good sounding board. And if you have that tribe, that sounding board, what you've got at the back of your mind when you do something difficult or a little bit challenging is, you know, you're going to go back to that group and tell them, and they're going to cheer, and they're going to really, really support you. And actually, what I found from a psychological perspective was, it was no longer about me calling things out or challenging people. Sorry, I've just seen a message from Kat on the chat. You are wonderful in real life as well. I'm sure you are, Kat. But it's not just me going into a situation and calling it out or being bold. It's actually me doing it on the basis that I'm going to make other people proud as well. And I think that's a really interesting learn for me psychologically. So sometimes, unfortunately, us being proud of ourselves isn't enough. Sometimes it's about having other people cheer us on as well. That's really important. And that can form a really strong basis for you going in there and having the courage to call it out, because you know you're going to have loads of people around you going, yes. So having that strong network is really important. And you have that no matter what stage of your career you're at. And I suppose the more technical, supportive employee side of it is, if you're struggling to call things like that out, is it worth talking to the organization around developing certain networks, like a gender network, a sexuality network, so on. I spoke yesterday at the Clarion Gender Network, and it's for everyone. I think they call it in their organization who is it's something like less power in their gender. So it incorporates people who are transgender as well, for example. And it's a really good network. You can tell it's a really strong network, and it allows people to challenge from a corporate perspective as well. So they don't have to individually challenge something. They can bring it back to a corporate vehicle, if you like, in order to put that forward. And that gives you strength as well, because actually it doesn't become you challenging. It becomes an entire segment of the organization challenging.
Brilliant. Thank you, Helen. And yeah, what you've been saying has been resonated with people in the chat there as well. I think we're all going to go away thinking about Caroline's use of the word tribe. And, you know, because I think that is so important, that network, that, you know, not being a lone voice, as Amy said in the chat there, and the importance of standing together. So that's great. So we are almost perfectly at the right time, so I don't think any of us are going to get told off by Caroline or Crystal, so that's good. So what I would just like to say is a massive thank you to our fantastic speakers there, and for the amazing questions that we've had from the audience as well. You know, I think just to finish off, I would say creating that list, like I said before, and the research that has identified all of those challenges has been a great achievement. And in many ways, it's like a little time capsule, isn't it? Date stamped of March 2021, midst a global pandemic. And I think it's something we should revisit, maybe in a year's time. Maybe we won't be in a pandemic at that point, fingers crossed, everybody. And maybe 5 years, even 10 years time after that. And in the meantime, you know, as Angela said, let's not go back to normal. We've all got to take some responsibility from here to be that change that we want to see, to challenge each other, to support, to be allies, to be mentors, and to work together so that we are not those lone voices. So thank you, everybody, so much. So I think what's going to happen now is that we have got the almost like Christmas point of the event. So we're going to be putting, I think some of us have managed to not open our boxes. Others, Crystal, have certainly opened their boxes already. So we're going to go into some workshops now. Well, I'm saying workshops, but really they're sort of discussion groups. So there's the opportunity, or we're hoping everybody is going to open their boxes that have arrived for them in those. We've got a quiz, I believe, and it's a time to have that chat and talk about the things that we've been exploring today before we come back for the final part of the session. Is that right, Caroline, or have I said anything?
No, that's lovely, Lucy. I'm just thinking, Em, can you pop the slide up, and can you pop the quiz in the chat? And if people can download the quiz, it is an equality and diversity and inclusion quiz. So if you can, if the more tech savvy amongst you can just download that. It's a voluntary thing, so we're not going to be taking scores or anything, but it's just to remind you of some of the challenges that they are in terms of some of the numbers. So I just want to say thank you so much to the speakers, because that was absolutely fabulous. I knew it was going to be, and I think it's really given us an opportunity in terms of food for thought. Let's have a look. I think it's probably around slide 26, because I want to, since we can't be with you in person, we wanted to send you a little treat to thank you for your continued support, to thank the sponsors so much, and to thank the gold ticket sponsors that were just flagged up there. So the golden tickets are a bit like a raffle. So we want you to get donating, please. Don't forget the link. When you go into your rooms, we want you to open your boxes. Everybody's got something, so there's no empty boxes. Everybody's got at least 3 things. So surely that's worth a few quid. If you've got a golden ticket, and 23 of you will have a golden ticket, you've won a prize. So what I would say is the networking aspect of this webinar is so important, especially in the current environment. So when we put you in your rooms, please don't disappear off, or I will find you. I'll get me Liam Nielsen on. I've got your addresses because I sent the boxes. So please don't drop out. You've got about, let's have a look, what time is it? We've got 20 minutes, and what we want you to do is open your boxes, donate if you can, do the quiz, and then if you can just post in the chat what your thoughts are on the wish list. And then when we come back, we'll give you the answers to the quiz, and I'll be handing over to the new chair, of Wish North East, Crystal, who's going to say a few words. So with that, Em's going to throw us into rooms. Like I said, please don't drop off. Please use it as an opportunity to network, and we'll see you back in here. You'll get pulled back in here at 12 o'clock.
Box.
Hey, I got this.
Costume.
They're
gonna go ticket.
I want to.
Yes.
And I got another cup as well. I love cups. Chocolate. I've got a golden envelope. I've only just opened it.
I did too.
Hey! Liz has got one, yeah.
Yeah,
Brilliant, yeah.
Well, it's lovely to see that we've still got 5 pages of, we're down to 113, so there's not many that have dropped out. So if everybody's back, can you share the slide, the picture of the board, please? Where's Em? We've got Em.
There.
She'll still be letting people in.
Sorry,
I would
I'm
think.
trying to find it.
Oh, lovely, thank you. It'll be the second from last one, I would imagine.
Okay.
So I hope you enjoyed your treats in your boxes. I hope they were worth waiting for.
Made my day.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much.
Right.
So you're just going to hear from me for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to pass over to Crystal. But I think what I'd like to say is, obviously 3 years ago when we set this up, we had no idea at all where it was going to lead. Obviously, I'd heard about Wish from Twitter. I rang Nicola Dibb, who was the founder and the MD at the time, and she said there wasn't one in the Northeast. I had some time on my hands because I'd just been made redundant. So I said I would have a bash at setting one up. I put a shout out on LinkedIn, and before we knew it, we had a board. And you'll have heard me say before, I wasn't even sure if it was appropriate or relevant in the 21st century to set up a women's networking group. And we wondered if anybody would come, but they did, and you have. So we have in excess of 50 people at most of our events. Sometimes it's up to 80 at our live events. Remember those. And obviously International Women's Day normally gets about 200. So we've got really good support. Nearly every RP in the region has joined alongside individual members. And what I like about Wish is that it is accessible to individuals. So if your organisation doesn't believe in this sort of stuff, you can come along under your own steam. We'll have actually raised over £10,000 in the last 3 years for charity. So for Oasis Community Housing, the first year that we had an event, for Smart Works the second year, and for this year's charity Women's Aid. So please continue to donate if you can. We've had 32 board meetings. Can you believe that? And that's a group of volunteers, and this lovely lot on the slide, who give their time freely. So I think if you wonder what we do as well, obviously we pull together events like today. We manage the social media, we write blogs, we judge competitions, we mentor women formally and informally, and just generally support women in social housing. So we'd admit that we haven't cracked it yet, and we've still got some work to do in relation to BAME women, and in particular the role that men play in relation to this agenda. But I think what I would like to sign off in is, I'm proud of what Women in Social Housing North East has become. I couldn't have wished to have met a better group of women. They are supportive, they are authentic, they are encouraging, and they are challenging, and they're absolutely what you would want your tribe to be. So it is my time to step back now. I'm going to stay on the national kick just for another year, because obviously it's a new entity, and we want a bit of continuity. But I couldn't be more delighted that Crystal Hicks is going to become the new chair of Wish North East, supported by Judith, who's going to be a vice, and obviously this lovely lot. We've got 4 new board members. We've got Carolyn Wood, Claire Teasdale, Sona, and Jane Lawson. So since last International Women's Day, we've got 4 new board members, and I would just like to formally thank the board for all of the support over the last 3 years. obviously including some of the board members who've stepped down. So that would be Tina Drury, Monica Burns, Rebecca Slack, who I think's on today, and Karen Wheatley. So they're people who have contributed over the last 3 years, and I'd like to thank them as well. Thank you so much to our sponsors, those who are supporting us today and those who have supported us previously. But I think most importantly, thank you to you, our members, who have made this possible. There was a series of videos put out recently on social media where we had the chief executives and some of the executives explaining why Wish membership was important to their organisations, which was absolutely fantastic. So thanks to today's speakers as well. So with that, it's Caroline over and out, and over to Crystal, your new chair of Wish North East. And I think we've got a lovely photo of you, Crystal, when we were allowed out. Next slide. Next slide, please. There you go.
When we were allowed out. Those were the days when we were allowed to put on a nice frock and meet up together in person. Well, I'm going to apologise now because I think my connection has been a bit itty-missy, but hopefully you can hear me. So what a morning we've had, and I just love these sessions because I just leave them with the spring in my step, ready to take on the world. And we've been talking about bringing this wish list together for such a long time now, so it's really great to launch it here. Thanks to the Wish North East board and to all of you for contributing to that. Some of the things that have stuck with me around the discussions today, from Sandra saying be your authentic self. It's exhausting pretending to not be yourself, and also from Helen about that message about just because someone says you have a choice doesn't actually mean you have one, and when you're in that situation you do need a network of people around you to help you through. So it's been a fantastic event. So it won't have gone unnoticed obviously, but it's Caroline's last meeting as chair, but she's not going anywhere. We're holding on to her for another year, which is great, but we did want to take an opportunity to say how much we love her and how grateful we are for everything she's done. So I'm actually going to hand over to Judith Common, who just wanted to say a couple of words of thanks from the board. Are you there, Judith?
Yes, I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
Can
you hear me? Yeah, great. Karen, we couldn't just let you walk out into the sunset without saying a great big thank you. So before we look forward to the next 12 months, I think as a board, we must pay sort of tribute to the inspirational individual you are, who's actually got us to this point in time. And whilst we know that you're going to stay on in an advisory capacity for another year, we need to actually acknowledge the tenacity, the commitment, the networking skills, and dare I say it, the sort of arm twisting that you've done through your contacts to get the housing associations and registered providers to sign up to Wish North East. I think you've done a tremendous job in sort of really making us authentic and relevant, and to get us on the map. For us as board members, Caroline Gitcham has been a confidant, a friend, a mentor, a role model, a most incredible human being.
Oh, I'm filling up.
Authentic. These are all words, Caroline, that have come from the board themselves. And one of the things we noticed that you always put other people first. And so from your tribe, a great big heartfelt thank you. We're very proud to be your tribe. We'll look forward to the day when we can actually meet up in person and share a glass of bubbly. But let's be honest about it, even a cup of coffee together nowadays would seem like a real luxury, wouldn't it? So, you know, we really wanted to say thank you to you. And as I hand over to Crystal, Crystal's got big shoes to fill, but I'm more than certain that Crystal's up to that task. And as board members, we will do everything to support Crystal in her next journey and taking Wish to its next sort of phase. So I'm going to hand over to Crystal, who's going to outline to you the plans that we have for the next 12 months. Okay, over to you, Crystal.
It's good. Thank you so much for that. I didn't think I would get emotional, but thank you so much for that. That was such lovely words, and you've absolutely kept me sane over the last 3 years. It's been an absolute pleasure. So over to you, Crystal. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. They truly are very, very big boots to fill. So I just wanted to close the event really by just saying hello to you all. I don't think all of you will know who I am, but some of you will, from frantically running around at the past International Women's Day events, normally trying to get you to spend money and donate. So I've been on the Wish board since it was founded 3 years ago, and I've got what Caroline would describe as a bit of a multi-hyphen life. So I'm mum to 2 twin girls, Alice and Rosie. They're 5 next month, and I'm married to Graham, and I hold loads of voluntary roles, really, probably too many, in an attempt really to create a more equal world for us all to live in. And my day job, I'm Assistant Director for Customer Services at Your Home Newcastle, and I'm massively proud of my career and to be part of a leadership team who take equality, diversity and inclusion just so seriously. And I'm also really thankful and proud to have quite an equal marriage. So I overcommit, I know I do, and I could only do that. I can only do that because I'm so supported by Graham, my husband, who is such a believer in equality and just school runs and does everything that I often don't find the time to do and have that balance there. So I really believe that you only get equality for women when both men and women are working towards it. So which has become a really significant part of who I am over the past 3 years. And in the early days, and Caroline's alluded to this, I used to wonder why on earth does Wish focus on creating networks for women when we really need to be like actively campaigning for women's equality and striving to change things for women on a big scale. But over the past 36 months, what that's really taught me is most change comes not in like giant leaps, but in those small steps, like one person at a time. And when you're a minority, part of a minority group, and you don't feel like you've got a voice and you feel at times oppressed, what you need really to free yourself from that inequality is a tribe, to coin a Carolinism. So no one changes things alone, and this network or this tribe, to be your cheerleader, your agony aunt, to tell you it's straight when it's needed as well, is really important, especially for those who are trying to create equality for themselves and obviously everyone around them. So as we move into the year ahead, one of my big focuses is really going to be on trying to help all of our members create that tribe and network for yourselves. And then obviously another big priority, like we've discussed today, is the wish list that we've launched. So I truly believe that's going to be so significant in our efforts moving forward. And as someone who does a lot of work around equality and diversity and inclusion, so the wish list is really that litmus test now for organisations to know if they're getting it right and how to get it right if they aren't. So I'd also love it because it can easily apply not just like women, but looking at the list who my husband with at work. I've been speaking to some of my male colleagues at work, and they're like, I want all of this as well. So that's a real opportunity in that list. I think another priority for me in the year ahead is about creating equality and inclusion for all, not just women. So win-win situations for everybody. So I'm really going to be focusing on the diversity agenda too. So I'm not sure whether you got all of that because my connection has failed me, I think, at the last minute. But I just wanted to say that I can't put into words how sad I am that Caroline's stepping down, but how excited I am to be taking over. It's a real conflict of emotions. But I know I'm going to do it coming from a place of just feeling so privileged to be given the opportunity. So my first task is to close the event and say a big thank you to all of our sponsors, 13, Believe, MRI, Prosper and Core House. And also a thank you to you all for donating in your fundraising efforts. So watch this space. And if you're here because your organisation is a member, then do follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, in your own right, and get involved as an individual. We love having you all part of this network. So thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks. Cheerio. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.